Every time someone praises you, a part of you quietly calls them a liar. Someone says something kind about you, and your gaze drops to the floor. You laugh it off, change the subject, immediately return the compliment, as if it might burn you if you held onto it for too long. You brush it aside, point out what the person overlooked, and deflect the praise before it even reaches you. And, deep down, a silent thought. If they really knew me, they wouldn't say that. You call it modesty. Even humility. But this discomfort with praise, this instinct to pull away the moment you are truly seen, didn't start just now. If any of that already feels a little too close, go ahead and subscribe, because what we're about to put into words is something most people carry for a lifetime without ever realizing it had a starting point. Because not being able to let something good in, to let warmth actually reach you, was never a flaw stitched into your character. It was a lesson, one you learned far too early, in a home where being noticed came with a price you couldn't yet name. The childhood reason behind your discomfort with compliments. Alice Miller. Let's start with the moment itself. Someone praises your work, your kindness, the way you handled something hard, and watch what happens inside you. There's a flicker, almost too fast to catch. Your body tightens before your mind even responds. You feel exposed, like a light got pointed somewhere you'd rather keep dim. So you do what you always do. You minimize, you redirect, you find the flaw they overlooked. The compliment never quite reaches you. It bounces off some invisible wall you didn't build on purpose. And here's the strange part. You can take criticism. Criticism feels almost familiar, like an old coat that fits. But praise? Praise makes you squirm. It's the kindness that's unbearable, not the cruelty. That alone should tell you something. Because a person who's comfortable being torn down but panics at being lifted up isn't dealing with low confidence. They're dealing with something older, something wired in. This discomfort with compliments isn't a personality quirk you picked up. It's a signature, and every signature was written by a hand. So let's go back. Not to blame anyone, just to understand. Picture the child you once were, maybe 4, maybe 5, holding up a drawing. A scribbled sun, a crooked house, a family with stick arms. You held it up because you wanted one thing: for someone to look. Really look. To meet your eyes and let you know that what you made, that you, mattered. Now ask yourself, gently, what did the face looking back actually do? Hold that image. We'll need it. There's a word for what that child needed: mirroring. A psychologist named Donald Winnicott noticed that a baby first discovers who they are in their caregiver's face. When you smile and the face smiles back, you learn you exist, you're delightful, you're real. That face is the first mirror. But what happens when the mirror is blank? Distracted? Tired, irritated, somewhere else? The child doesn't stop needing the reflection. They just conclude something quietly devastating, that the problem must be the thing in front of the mirror. Them. This is the heart of what Alice Miller spent her life writing about. The child who isn't truly seen for who they are learns to perform for who they're allowed to be. They build a brighter, easier, more convenient version of themselves, a self that earns the warmth the real one couldn't. Miller called this the false self. And here's the cruel twist. That performed self can get praised constantly, and none of it lands. Because deep down the child knows the applause is for the mask, not the face beneath it. Let me tell you about a person I'll never name, call them every one of us. A child who got gold stars for grades, applause for being so mature, praise for never causing trouble. From outside, a success. Inside, a quiet ache. Years later, as an adult, this person froze every time a partner said, "I'm proud of you." The words felt like a language they couldn't read. They'd smile, nod, and immediately feel the tight chest, the urge to flee. Loved, supposedly, yet never able to feel held. What was that person actually doing? Protecting an old wound. Because if praise lands, you have to believe it, and believing it means lowering the very shield that kept you safe back when love felt conditional. Think about it. If your worth as a kid rose and fell with your usefulness, your grades, your good behavior, then a compliment wasn't free. It was a transaction with terms attached. So deflecting praise isn't rudeness or false modesty. It's an old reflex, still running, still trying to protect a child who learned love had a bill. Try something the next time it happens. When a compliment comes and you feel that familiar flinch, don't fight it, just name it, silently. There it is, the old reflex. Notice where it lives in your body. Maybe it's holding your breath. Maybe it's your gaze dropping, your eyes looking away before you can stop them. You don't have to fix it yet. You just have to catch it in the act. Because a pattern you can see is a pattern that's already starting, quietly, to loosen its grip on you. Go back once more. There's a particular kind of home this grows in. Not always loud, not always cruel. Sometimes it's the quiet kind. A parent physically there but emotionally somewhere else. Dinner eaten in silence. A child's excited story met with a distracted No one shouting, no one hitting, just a slow, steady absence of being truly met. This is what gets called childhood emotional neglect, and it leaves no bruises. That's exactly why it's so hard to see. You can't point to a wound nobody can find. And the children of those quiet homes become experts at something. Reading rooms, scanning faces, sensing the temperature of a parent's mood before a word is spoken. It's a kind of learned hypervigilance, a survival skill dressed up as sensitivity. You learn to give care you never reliably got, to tune yourself to everyone else's frequency while your own went silent. So when someone finally turns towards you with warmth, the system doesn't relax, it braces. Because being the one received, not the one giving, was never the role you were handed. Now notice what this does to your relationships as an adult. When someone offers you genuine warmth, a part of you waits for the catch. You enjoy the kindness, sure, but quietly, you're scanning for the invoice. When does this get withdrawn? What will I owe? It's the strange ache of feeling unworthy of the very thing you've wanted your whole life. You don't trust the good, because the good, back then, was never stable. It came and went with conditions. So you hold it at arm's length, where it can't disappoint you by leaving. This is also why so many people in this exact pattern are drawn to fixing, helping, over-giving. If you can stay the one who provides, you never have to sit in the terrifying vulnerability of receiving. Giving feels safe. It keeps you in control, keeps you useful, keeps the old equation balanced. Love earned, never simply given. But there's a cost. A life spent pouring out and never letting anything pour back in eventually runs you dry. You can be surrounded by people who adore you and still feel, somehow, profoundly alone. There's a famous experiment that shows just how early this begins. In 1975, a researcher named Edward Tronick ran what's now called the still face study. A mother plays warmly with her baby, then, on cue, goes blank. Flat face. No response. Within seconds, the baby strains, reaches, tries everything to win the connection back. And when nothing works, the baby crumbles, looks away, shuts down. Not years of neglect, 2 minutes of a blank mirror. Imagine then, what 1,000 small blank moments teach a child over an entire childhood. That's the bridge right there. The baby in that study and the adult deflecting a compliment are running the same program. Reach for connection. Meet a wall. Conclude it's safer not to reach. Over time, that conclusion stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like who you are. I'm just not good at taking compliments, you say, as if it were a fixed trait, like eye color. But it isn't. It's a strategy. A brilliant one. It kept a small, dependent person from the unbearable pain of reaching and finding no one there. And this is where the relief begins to creep in, if you let it. Because if your discomfort is a strategy, not a defect, then it was never proof of something broken in you. It was proof of how well you adapted. A child who learns to expect the blank face and stops reaching isn't damaged. They're resourceful. They found a way to survive a shortage of something they couldn't live without. The flinch you hate about yourself was, once upon a time, the smartest move available to a person who had almost no moves at all. But survival strategies overstay their welcome. The wall that protected the child becomes the ceiling on the adult. What kept you safe at 5 quietly starves you at 35. Because here's the thing nobody told you. The love you couldn't take in back then is available now, in ways it wasn't before. The problem isn't a lack of warmth in your life anymore. The problem is a nervous system still trained to deflect it. A system built in a different time, for a different danger, still faithfully running its old code. So how does it actually feel in the body, this deflection? Pay attention next time. There's often a quick inhale, a holding of breath, a subtle pull back in the chest, as if the kind words were a touch you weren't braced for. Some people feel heat in the face, a flash of wanting to vanish. This is your nervous system dysregulation in miniature. Praise registering not as safety but as threat. Your body, bless it, is treating a gift like an ambush. And it's doing that because, long ago, attention sometimes was won. Here's a practice, if you want one. Find a small, true compliment someone's given you recently. Nothing dramatic, just real. Write it down on paper, then sit with it for 60 seconds without doing anything. No rebuttal, no but. No listing the reasons they're wrong. Just let it sit there in front of you and notice the discomfort rise. You're not trying to believe it yet. You're just teaching your system that the words can exist near you without danger. That nothing bad happens when you don't push them away. Go back one more time, because there's a subtler layer here. Sometimes the issue wasn't a cold parent at all. Sometimes it was a parent whose love came pouring in, but only when you achieved. The straight-A's parent. The "you're so talented" parent who went quiet when you simply existed without producing. That's its own kind of conditional love, and it's confusing precisely because it looks like devotion. The child learns, I am loved for what I do, never for who I am. And a compliment for who you are becomes literally unpassable. There's no slot for it. That's the version Alice Miller knew most intimately, the gifted child, prized for their gifts, starving for unconditional regard. And it produces a very particular adult, high-achieving, admired, and secretly convinced the admiration would vanish the second they stopped performing. Every compliment to them is a renewal notice on a contract they're terrified of losing. So they can't relax into it. They have to immediately get back to earning. Rest feels like risk. Being rather than doing feels almost like disappearing, and that fear has a root we still need to dig toward. So what do you actually do with all this? Not fix yourself. You were never broken. The work is gentler and stranger than fixing. It's called reparenting yourself, and it sounds abstract until you make it concrete. It means becoming, for the child still inside you, the steady face that wasn't always there. When the flinch shows up, instead of judging it, you turn toward it the way a good parent turns toward a startled kid. Oh, I see you. That makes sense. You're safe now. You give, inward, the attunement you spent a lifetime giving everyone else. Let's make that practical, because the idea alone won't move you. Picture that 4-year-old holding up the drawing, the one we started with. Now imagine you, the adult, kneeling down to their level. What do they need to hear? Not "good job." Something deeper. I see you. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to earn this. Say it to them, in your mind, in your own words. It may feel silly. It may also crack something open, because you are finally offering that child the one mirror that was missing, yours. There's a writing version of this that works quietly over time. Some evening, take a pen and write a short letter to the child you were. Tell them what you understand now that no one understood then, that their reaching wasn't too much, that the blank faces weren't their fault, that they were always worth meeting. Don't perform it. Just speak plainly to them. People who do this often find the tears come not from sadness but from recognition, the strange grief of finally being witnessed, even if the witness is only your own older self. And slowly, as you practice, something shifts in how compliments feel. The first stage isn't believing them, that comes much later. The first stage is just letting them land without immediately swatting them away. You feel the old urge to deflect, and you simply don't. You say thank you, and you let the silence after it be a little uncomfortable. You're not faking confidence. You're tolerating connection. And tolerance, repeated enough times, slowly turns into something that feels almost like trust, a thing your nervous system can finally afford. Notice, too, how this reaches past compliments into everything. The same wall that blocks praise blocks help, blocks comfort, blocks being cared for when you're sick, blocks letting someone simply love you on a Tuesday for no reason at all. The discomfort with compliments is just the most visible thread of a much wider pattern, a deep difficulty with receiving anything at all. So when you practice letting praise in, you're not learning a social skill. You're learning, for the first time maybe, how to be on the receiving end of love without bracing for the bill. There's grief in this work, and it's worth naming honestly. Because to let the good in now is to admit, somewhere, how much was missing then. The flinch was also protection from that grief. If you never let warmth land, you never have to feel the ache of how long you went without it. So go slow. The sadness that surfaces isn't a setback. It's the wound finally being allowed to exist out loud, which is the only way it ever softens. You're not falling apart. You're thawing, and thawing has always hurt more than staying frozen. Here's something that might reframe the whole thing. That hypervigilance, that radar for everyone's moods, that exhausting sensitivity, it isn't only a scar. It made you perceptive, attuned, often deeply kind. You can read a room because you once had to. You can sense pain in others because you know its shape from the inside. The trick is to stop aiming all that exquisite attunement outward and turn a little of it home. The same care you so easily give, you're allowed to receive it. You were always allowed. No one just told you. And this is where the wound starts to look less like damage and more like a map. Everything that hurt was pointing, the whole time, at what you most needed and didn't get, to be seen without earning it, met without performing, loved without conditions. The deflecting, the overgiving, the bracing, they're not random malfunctions, they're arrows. Follow each one back, and it lands on the same buried treasure, a child who simply wanted to matter as they were. You couldn't read that map then. You're learning to read it now. Let's return to the person from earlier, the one who froze at, "I'm proud of you." When they finally understood all this, something quietly changed. They didn't suddenly become great at compliments. But one day a friend said something warm, and instead of deflecting, they paused. They felt the flinch, named it silently, and said a simple "thank you," and let it sit. It felt unbearable for about 4 seconds. Then it felt, faintly, like coming home to yourself, like a door you'd kept shut your whole life opening just an inch, and no danger walking through. Because that's what's really on the other side of this. Not becoming a person who loves compliments, that was never the goal. The goal is becoming a person who can be reached. Who can let warmth, care, recognition cross the moat and actually touch the castle. For someone shaped by a blank mirror, that isn't a small thing. It's a revolution conducted in whispers, one received kindness at a time. And it asks only this of you, that you stop treating your own deep need to be seen as something shameful to hide. So let the old story loosen its grip, the one that said you were difficult to love, too much and not enough at once, only worth the warmth you could earn. That story wasn't truth, it was a translation. It was the only language available to a small person decoding a room that didn't reflect them back. You learned to read silence as a verdict on your worth, when it was only ever silence, someone else's limit, never your sentence. And a language learned can be unlearned. You're allowed now to speak a kinder one to yourself, slowly, clumsily, in your own time. And here's the quiet truth to carry out of all this. The child who held up the drawing and watched the blank face, That child was never asking for too much. They were asking for the most ordinary thing in the world, to be seen and found worth seeing. The fact that the mirror was empty says everything about the mirror and nothing about the child. You were always worth looking at. You always will be. The only mirror that was missing, it turns out, is one you can finally hold up yourself, and this time, the face looks back. So here's where I'll leave you, not with a task, but with a question to sit beside. When you think back to that child holding up the drawing, what did they actually want to hear? Not "good job." Something underneath it. Can you give them those words now, in your own voice tonight? Because the work was never about getting good at compliments. It was about becoming someone who can finally be reached. Notice this week what happens the next time warmth comes toward you. The flinch, the dropped gaze, the rush to hand it back. Watch it with curiosity instead of judgment. You don't have to stop it. You just have to see it. And in seeing it, you've already done the thing that no one did for you back then. You turned toward the part of you that was reaching, and you didn't look away. I want to ask you something, and I'd love for you to answer it down in the comments. In one word, just one, describe the child you used to be. Not who you became to survive. The one underneath all of that. The one who held up the drawing. Whatever word rises first, before you can edit it, leave it below. You might be surprised how many strangers leave the very same word, and how much less alone that makes the whole thing feel. And if you've made it all the way here, to the end of something that probably touched places you don't often let anyone near, I want you to know that means something. You stayed. You looked at the hard thing. That takes a particular kind of courage, the quiet kind nobody claps for. So, genuinely, thank you for spending this time here, for letting these words land instead of deflecting them the way you've always known how. Here's what I'd offer you as you go. Everything that ached all this time was pointing somewhere. The deflecting, the overgiving, the bracing for a bill that never came. None of it was malfunction. It was a map, every arrow aimed back at the same buried thing. A child who only ever wanted to matter as they were. You couldn't read that map then. You're holding it now. You were never bad at being loved. You were just a child still waiting for someone to hold the mirror. And now at last, the hands holding it are your own. If this gave words to something you've carried quietly for a long time, you might find that the rest of what lives on this channel does the same. Not to fix you, but to keep you company while you understand yourself. No rush. It'll be here whenever you're ready to look at the next piece. And yet, notice what you do the moment things get tense. Not when warmth arrives, when the air goes sharp. Someone raises their voice, conflict cracks open, and something in you just powers down. You go quiet. You disappear inside yourself, mid-sentence, mid-feeling. You tell yourself it's keeping the peace. But what if going silent was never calm at all? What if it was the oldest survival move you have, the one you reached for before you even had words? There's a reason the quiet falls so fast.